About a week ago, I discovered two mysterious CDs next to my computer that I didn't recognise. Whatever could be on them? Well, as it turns out, they're both stacked to the brim with Nintendo DS game files, just waiting to be loaded onto an R4 card. And let me tell you, there are some weird titles on this CD, so I took it upon myself to compile a short folder containing some of the files with the most intriguing names, and I played through them one by one. Here is my short review of all of those games. First up on the list was AMF Bowling Pin Busters, a classic title that I'm sure each and every one of you has heard of. Upon loading up the game, it gave me a choice between two of what I can only assume are some of the best bowling athletes in the world, those being The Streak and Lil Z. Obviously I went for Lil Z, Z-Gang represent. As it turns out, this game is essentially Wii Sports Bowling with worse physics, worse graphics, and worse everything else. I did manage one strike in the 5 minutes I spent playing. All in all, I would say maybe don't play this one. We swiftly move on then to Aquarium for DS. I had high expectations for this one, as I was for some reason expecting it to be similar to Endless Ocean. Nope, it's pretty garbage. The graphics are woeful. I mean, why is this game so dark? I also couldn't figure out what to do really. There were no instructions. I ended up with a tank full of fish. I fed them and then I decided that was enough. Don't play this one either. Next up is something called Big Brain Academy. Now, I'm a bit of a small brain as it is, so I thought finally this would be my chance to expand my mind. I think this is a bit like brain training in the fact that it tells you it's making you cleverer, but it doesn't actually work. The few games that I played included looking at scales and saying which thing is the heaviest, and then guessing the amount of money different American coins relate to. I don't understand how these are supposed to make me a big brain. I'm going back to Duolingo, thank you. The next title on the list really intrigued me. It's called Break 'Em All. Maybe it's a karate game where you have to chop through wood with your bare hands. Or maybe it's a wrestling game where you fight to see who breaks first. It's neither of those, unfortunately. It's actually just a typo, and the game is actually called Brick 'Em All. To summarise, it's a terrible version of Brick Breaker. Now we move on to Cars the Game, which if you know anything about the movie Cars, I think we can expect some hardcore racing. The title gives you 3 different cars to choose between: a muscle car, a Porsche or something, and a minibus. I of course went for the minibus, but to my surprise there was no racing to be found. Instead, it was just an awful memory game using a traffic light. Listen, if I wanted to do memory games, I'd play Big Brain Academy. I tried again, but this time I selected the muscle car. This game was a bit closer to the racing game I was craving, but it still only involved me changing lanes every time a car came along. Severely disappointed, I held on to the faintest hope that selecting the sports car might work, but that took me to a mini game that involved filling cars with petrol, so I decided I'd had enough of this game and I'm never going back to it. My craving for a good solid racing game had not been properly satisfied, but luckily up next was a game that might just help me out: Cartoon Network Racing. This game is a huge rip-off of Mario Kart, but still, it's better than nothing. I didn't actually know any of the characters in the game apart from the Powerpuff Girls, but I'll be damned if I was going to pick them, so instead I settled on a chicken in a bathtub. This game has a couple of major flaws in the fact it looks pretty uninteresting and it performs pretty poorly as well. Apart from that though, it must be the greatest game of all time. The main thing I found frustrating is the course design is so bad that some of the corners you're supposed to drive around are physically impossible. Sadly though, it was still probably the best game I'd played so far, and for that reason, I'll give it a pass. I couldn't stop there though. The next game was Charlotte's Web, which as it turns out is a 2D platformer. I'm struggling to understand why anybody thought, do you know what the Charlotte's Web franchise is missing? A DS game. But here we are, and honestly this game was a short breath of fresh air. I couldn't be bothered to delve into it too much, but from what I could tell, it's actually half decent, and I just love the fact that this pig is able to climb ladders and navigate jumping puzzles. This game gets a pass too. The next game on the list was Chicken Little Ace in Action. To my utter dismay though, it wouldn't start, which is a real shame because I'm 100% sure it would have been the best game so far. The show must go on though, I thought, as I loaded up the following game, Electro Plankton. Electro Plankton isn't really a game, it's more of a mess of noise. Basically, the premise is you drag these small jellyfish creatures around and they make random noises depending on where you've dragged them. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm sure you can imagine my excitement when I saw there was a game called Garfields Fun Fest. This game has all your favourite characters in it. It's got Garfield, it's got Garfield. My review of this game would be, it's a worse version of Charlotte's Web. Next up we look at a pair of different games, those being I Did It Mum Boy and I Did It Mum Girl. I don't really understand why these games exist, to be honest, because the gameplay is clearly aimed at very young children, like toddler sort of age. I mean, the activities include playing random instruments, looking after hamsters, and driving a school bus, which is still a better racing game than Cars. But I mean, who gives a baby a DS? What use does a baby have for a DS? This is a man's console! As a result, I'm not going to judge this game too harshly, as it's just a bit misguided. But I did manage to make a fresh tune on the piano, and that's all that really matters. Mario Hoops 3-on-3. I'm just gonna say it, this is the best game on the list so far, and certainly the most enjoyable. It's basketball with Mario characters. What could go wrong? I chose my 3 favourite guys, Yoshi, Luigi and Donkey Kong, and I chose Waluigi, Wario and Bowser Jr. as my opponents. Big mistake. As soon as I got into the game, Waluigi just sauntered up to my net and absolutely dunked on me. Look at that move, it's some sort of windmill move. How am I supposed to compete with that? To make matters worse, Waluigi dunked on me again, to give them a big lead. I wasn't gonna lose to a bunch of villains though, and with the help of Donkey Kong, I got a dunk of my own, and from there, it was easy sailing. Yoshi pounded one in, and Donkey Kong netted again. Unfortunately though, Bowser Jr. had a few tricks up his sleeve as he pulled out this majestic basket. Have no fear though, Donkey Kong shored up the win with a beautiful 3-pointer. All in all, it's a good game. Very fun. Thank God as well, I was going mental playing all of these awful games. But yes, I recommend Mario Hoops 3-on-3. The next game on the list was My Pet Dolphin, which I expected to be a bit like Nintendogs, and it was, but with dolphins. I decided to call my dolphin Waluigi in honour of his windmill dunk, but when I got into the game, he was swimming really far away and I had no idea what to do. As it turns out, you actually have to call him over by shouting his name at the DS. But Waluigi, come on. Oh, it actually worked. Once he was over, I fed him a fish, gave him a little stroke, and then I decided to move on to Dodgeball Brawlers. Dodgeball Brawlers, eh? I have no idea what was going on in this. It just seems like a monumental mess of a game. I tried playing it, I really did, but why can I kick people in Dodgeball? Is that a thing? Next up was a game called Teenage Zombies Invasion of the Alien Brain Thingies. Plain and simple really, the title is much more interesting than the game. It's another 2D platformer, also known as a worse version of Charlotte's Web. Moving swiftly on to Tony Hawk's American Skateland. From the very short amount of time I've spent playing Tony Hawk games, I think they're generally pretty entertaining, and this one was no different. I'm not necessarily into doing all of the quests where you have to like deliver a pizza in a certain amount of time to the local Italian chef, but something about skating around doing random tricks that would probably end in a broken neck in real life is quite enjoyable. Yeah, not a bad game at all, I would recommend this one too. Finally, the last game I played was Top Spin 3, a game about tennis, and luckily we finish on one of the better games because honestly I was losing the will to live after playing all of these. I quickly set myself up a match at the French Open and Andy Roddick was my opposition. The game mostly consists of pressing the A button when the ball comes to you and running around to where you think the computer will hit it. What I wasn't prepared for is that Andy Roddick is a huge beast, and he actually beat me 40-love in the first game. I mean look, I even completely missed the ball. I wasn't gonna stand for this. I bombarded him with a whole string of volleys to win my first point. Then I completely intentionally hit it through his legs for the second. For the third, I hit a powerful return that rooted him to the spot, and then I swept him with an even more earth-shattering finish to win the game. I must admit, I did like Top Spin 3, and so now having played all of the games, I'll summarise my thoughts. Don't ever play this many DS games in a row, especially if you don't know how good they are. Listen, if it's a good game like Animal Crossing or Pokemon or something, fair enough. Play for as long as you want, but play 5 minutes of the Cars game, and I'm very worried for your sanity. Thank you so much for watching this video. There's plenty more games I could go through, so if people enjoyed this video, please let me know. Subscribe to my channel if you want to do that, and until next time, I'll be playing Charlotte's Web the game. Goodbye.